So ladies, I have another devotion for you today, and I title this one Formalism. You know, it occurs to me that if there's one thing that we do not understand as Christians, right, because this is all done within that context, it's grace. I think for most people, grace is simply a word. It's not necessarily something that's lived out. And I think even in my seminary education, it was often that way. I mean, we could study it, as graduate students and all of that years ago, but we didn't really understand that grace is something that can't really be defined, I don't think, in the traditional sense. It's something that you have to live. That's really, I think, where the definition for grace is more fully understood. It's in your life. And indeed, it really is in the way that we relate to God. And I'm not trying to complicate anything here, but one of the things that I have found somewhat irritating as I get older and older and older is our overemphasis, perhaps, on being formal with God or being serious with God. And it's understandable why we would be that way, right? Because we're dealing with a God who, through his own definition, is the great I am. I mean, he's the beginning and the end, the first and the last, as I've said in previous devotions. But you know what? At the same time, if he really is all those things, right? If he's really the creator of heaven and earth, and in Isaiah 55, if his ways really are higher than our ways, that is, as high and beyond us as the heavens are high and beyond us, then we're going to have to come to the conclusion that no matter how formal or serious we may be with him, that even that wouldn't suffice with such a God. And so we're sort of stuck in some kind of a dilemma where, if we're honest, and again, there's that moral component that I've brought up in numerous devotions that I've done with both of you previously, we're going to have to come to the agonizing conclusion that Isaiah came to, that all our righteousness is as filthy rags, that at the end of the day, it's God and God alone. And I say this because I think so often in our own sinfulness, we tend to think that we can somehow present ourselves in an acceptable way before this God of the universe. But once again, if we're honest, there'd be no way that we possibly could. You look at Adam and Eve, right, going all the way back to the dawn of the creation of man. But when they fell in chapter 3 of Genesis, God made garments for them to put on, right, because they were too ashamed to be exposed. And I think in a very real sense, when Jehovah God died on that cross, Yahweh, the great I am, whatever you want to call it, and said it is finished, and the veil in the temple was torn at the same time that he breathed his last, but he made it possible once again for you to be naked before him. He took those skins back off you. You don't have to put on airs with him. You don't have to be formal with him. You can be who you are. Because I think so often when we're formal with him, what we're really doing is simply putting those skins back on. We're attempting in a very futile way to hide from him. And God doesn't want that. And I think so often, too, that when we do that, what we're really trying to do is somehow earn our way with him. I mean, that's really what it all comes down to, right? We're always trying to undo the works of Christ, because I think at the root of who we are is pride. It's in thinking that somehow we have arrived. But of course, we've never arrived, right? We're born dirty, rotten sinners, and we die dirty, rotten sinners, whether you're 6 or 60. It's the same thing. In Psalm 51, verse 17, David said that a broken and contrite heart you will not reject. And that's what God's after. And when we try and approach him in a formal way, as good as that may sound, right? What we're really trying to do is get out of having a broken and contrite heart, because that's easier to do, isn't it? It's easier to be formal with the Lord than it is to admit that you're a dirty, rotten sinner saved by his blood. That's what it's all about. So be who you are. Know Christ. Don't put on airs. You don't have to engage in any of that nonsense. Once again, that's just salvation by works. He can take it. Believe me, he's the God of the universe, right? He died on the cross for you. What does Paul say? For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith. It's not of yourself, not by works, so that no man may boast. It's not by rules and regulations. It's not by formalism. It's by surrendering to the reality that his works, that his death was wholly sufficient for you on that cross. God bless you both.